once in 2012 that Diddy was a good friend of yours back then. He has since found himself in some very serious legal trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
Would you ever consider pardoning him?
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter, but nobody's asked. But I know people are thinking about it.
The Diddy arrest has opened the door for people to rethink the satanic panic because some of the allegations that he's facing are dark.
Good evening, godless sodomites.
Thank you to Satan for giving me inspiration on how to play this role.
I'm bringing the truth, John. We're in Hollywood, the belly of the beast.
On behalf of Amy, I'd like to thank the devil.
I want you to know that no one had less to do with this award than Jesus.
Kneel before your God, Babylon!
Suck it, Jesus! This award is my God now!
That was Satanism. It's working I made a pact. The movie came out so well.
That's when I really saw how dark and so it was dark. I get creeped out. I get scared to death.
And I formed a bunch of opinions about the town and about the people in it that were like, surely that couldn't be.
It was soulless.
Yeah.
Never seen anything. And I still, every time I get out there, I feel like, oh man, I don't feel life out there.
Yeah.
I don't feel it at all.
And then you go away and you think, no, I was wrong. I mean, that's insane thinking. I'm paranoid. I imagined that stuff. That couldn't be the reason for why so-and-so was acting like, could it? And then you find out later on the track that you were exactly on track.
What was it like going from the secular industry into the gospel?
The spirit of it is the same. I think I had an easier time doing hip-hop and R&B.
And gospel.
Than gospel.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast. Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. Who is able to make war with him?
Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to the Midnight Ride. It is my great honor, as always, to welcome all of you in for the ride tonight. And tonight, we will be discussing the occult connections of P. Diddy. For many years, we have been saying that there is a satanic cabal among the elites that is abusing children in the very worst way. Could it be that we were right all along? Find out tonight on the Midnight Ride, and it's time to ride right now, because we are now
Live. What's up, guys? We're live from the Puritan Barn once again, and super excited about it. 1 hour late, which is by some freak accident. I locked myself out of the office, and so my apologies. I am so sorry. I know a lot of you, this is late for a lot of you, and it's late. Hey, it's late for me too, but we're here. And I'm super excited about this show. I look at this as one of the shows that I think that we're going to bring some stuff to the table I don't think anybody else has brought to the table anytime recently, at least in the last few hundred years. But this is going to be something interesting. And so I hope you guys stick around. And we are obviously here to give you our opinion. Nothing we say is, I guess, what their disclaimer is now. This is all alleged, and it's all for entertainment purposes. So let us know where you're at in the chat. We're so happy you could make it with here. We're honored that you would take your time to be here with us. And David, how's your week been, man?
Been very, very good. Very, very good. Very blessed, and just enjoying the blessings of God. I'm blessed.
Very, very good, man. Yeah, we're excited, and I just want to announce one thing before we get started, and I'll give it to you, David, to announce. SpiracyCon, August 22nd, 23rd in Kentucky. You can meet myself and David there, and lots of other guests. If you go to spiracycon.com or go to our Facebook page, you can see all of the festivities. And next week, make sure you guys don't miss. If you are looking for a free ticket, then we have another giveaway for you guys next week. So make sure you guys pay attention for that. If you're looking to get one of those tickets, make sure to check out the website. And if you sign up for the mailing list, I believe you get 10% off still. So make sure you guys do that. And me and David are excited to meet you guys. We can't wait. And I know I speak for the rest of the people that are going to be involved in here. I think we got like 15 people coming, David, to speak. So
that's going to be
awesome.
A good time.
Yeah.
Going to be a good time.
Very good. So what do you got going on, David, this week?
Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, on our Underground Church channel, Brian Reese and I are going to be doing a presentation called Noah's Ark from the Extra Biblical Text. We're going to be taking the story of Noah. We're going to be looking at it in Jasher, Jubilees, Enoch, and also the Babylonian flood story. And the great thing about it, we're going to be able to say the name of the Babylonian Noah. Upnapishtim. It's just great to say that name, Upnapishtim. So you can join us for that tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central.
Very cool. Exciting show. I know I'm going to be listening, and this next week I'll be up in Dearborn and even parts of Canada. So I'm excited about that. Pray for that mission that we're doing there, and hopefully it'll really work out in the favor of God. You know, God's hand on all of this stuff. So we appreciate your prayers on that. So David, are we ready to ride, man?
It's time to ride. So let's ride.
Let's ride. So guys, like I said, I'm really kind of excited about this one because this subject is something that I've really contemplated for a very long time. For as long as I can remember, I have been drawn towards either music or some type of podcasting or video, and these stories and these things that happen behind closed doors have always boggled my mind and intrigued me and made me wonder, where does this come from? Why is this here? And so this slide here represents my mind in work with this broadcast. And you're gonna look at this and think, how in the world are all of these things related? And I'm just gonna say that maybe they are. I think they are. And I'm going to show you that when you look at this stuff, you're going to probably think they are as well. And it's very interesting how it all plays together, and it paints a really good picture about how all the way from ancient times to today, this game has been played, and it's even talked about in the scriptures and connects with the Mede Empire and Magi. And so there's so many different connections here that I can't wait to show you guys. So we're going to get started here. So this is P. Diddy. As most of you guys know exactly who that is, or you probably wouldn't be on this broadcast right now. And if you don't know who he is, good for you. Bravo. Big thumbs up. I am really actually very jealous that you don't know who he is, because I wish I didn't know who he is. Because when I look at the hip hop industry, what I see is something that's broken, very broken, and something that's really destroying a lot of people. P. Diddy recently was picked up on charges in March of 2024 is when they raided his home, and he's on trial now. As of this last month, he's been on trial. One of the biggest hip-hop moguls, if not the biggest now, especially since he has been all over the news. It's hard to miss who this guy is. He has rubbed shoulders with the most powerful people in Hollywood, the most powerful people in the music industry, even royalty and politicians have been to his white parties. Deals were made at white parties, and apparently that from the allegations, we're seeing a lot of other things were going on at these white parties as well. So just to give a little bit of background on Sean Combs, which is his real name, his father, Melvin, was actually an associate of Frank Lucas. And in the movie American Rapper, you can remember Frank Lucas and the American Rapper played by Denzel Washington. Well, I believe that Melvin Combs was also featured in this film as well, not his real self, but his father. So there's a history here, a crime history with him, his dad, and now we also have P. Diddy, who his associates have been saying that he's had a partnership with three-letter organizations for a very, very long time. So very interesting stuff here when it comes to dealing with Diddy. one of the things that I found interesting about all of this, because I'm not going to go into all of the gossip surrounding P. Diddy. I'm not going to go into all of the different allegations that he's not on trial for right now, but I am going to talk a little bit about what's being said about those things. But the thing that stood out to me the most out of all of this, that could be the reason for his downfall, could be the reason that all of this is going on. If you see this deal that was made with this liquor company, this company called Ciroc, that was his company that he had half ownership with, along with the company, I can't remember the name, Diageo, I believe is the name of the company, Diageo. And during this settlement, he was making almost $1 billion. I think he was making $900 million off of this alcohol deal. Well, Diddy decides, I guess that's not enough, and he decides to sue this alcohol company for racial discrimination, saying that they were trying to put his alcohol as a minority type drink, and he wasn't getting a fair share of his part of the company. Well, the legal dispute was settled in January of 2024, and Diddy was raided in March of 2024. Now, let me give you an idea of this company. This company is the biggest company that sells spirits internationally, the biggest, and they sell big, huge brands. And these people are probably, when you really think about it, some of the wealthiest people that have ever existed in the world. Their CEO is also a former intelligence officer, so there's a lot of connections there with this, which makes you wonder who flipped the table on this. And that's what makes this all interesting to me, is that we know that Diddy wasn't acting on his own. We know this. We know that he probably is not the first one who has done this. We know that this is a worldwide scheme, and many organizations have done this kind of thing throughout plenty of time. So we're going to be looking at that and kind of paying attention to some of the things that we're going to find out tonight, and see if it can give us a closer look into all that's going on. And we're going to even talk a little bit further about Donald Trump and his possible pardon of Diddy, some of those things. And David, before we go on to this next part, is there anything you'd like to add about this? I know you probably weren't a huge fan of Diddy in your day, but
yeah, it's just almost like you're hearing a story that you know the end to before you hear it. You know, there's just so many things here that are so obvious, and none of them are good. It paints a pretty ugly sword picture.
And one of the craziest things about all of this to me was this actually just came up, I believe it was yesterday or this morning. I can't remember. My days and nights have been mixed up because I've been kind of just really enveloped in this to get it done. I have to do this for every one of the broadcasts that we do. I have to really get really enveloped. So it either happened yesterday or today. There was a White House briefing, and one of the journalists asked Donald Trump if he would be pardoning P. Diddy, and I think you guys saw a little bit of that in the intro. What strikes me in this is, I think it was Newsweek that did a interview with Suge Knight not too long ago. Now, Suge Knight is in prison right now. He started Death Row Records at the time that Diddy was doing Bad Boy Records, so they were both rivals. There's even talk in these court cases about him going to shoot up Suge Knight's club, or where Suge Knight was at the time, and possibly being involved in all kinds of different random things. Well, Suge Knight, just to give you an idea of who he is, he built a multi-billion-dollar record label company back before record label companies, these hip-hop record label companies were a big thing. And he did it by himself, which is different than Diddy. Diddy did it in partnership with other bigger record companies. And as you can see, Suge Knight not being in the right club ended up landing him in prison, I'm sure, along with other criminal enterprise type activity, because from what I can gather from actually researching all this, it's pretty much Foundation is a criminal enterprise organization. So this is the foundation of this hip-hop industry. So I'm going to play this video for you so you can get the whole gist of what was said in the Trump interview. And the Suge Knight interview, I forgot to tell you, Suge Knight actually suggested that Trump would probably pardon him if he did get convicted. This Suge Knight said this, and he also said that the chances of Diddy going to jail are pretty slim, because most likely Diddy's gotten to one of the jurors by now. And Another interesting thing about all of this too, one of the people that was supposed to come up as a witness has disappeared. Nobody knows where they're at right now. So there's a lot of weird things surrounding this. I'm going to play this video. You guys judge for yourself what Trump means by this, but pretty interesting.
Diddy was a good friend of yours back then. He has since found himself in some very serious legal trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
Would you ever consider pardoning him?
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter, but nobody's asked. But I know people are thinking about it. I know they're thinking about it. I think some people have been very close to asking. First of all, I'd look at what's happening, and I haven't been watching it too closely, although it's certainly getting a lot of coverage. I haven't spoken to him in years. He used to really like me a lot, but I think when I ran for politics, that relationship busted up. From what I read, I don't know. He didn't tell me that, but I'd read some little bit nasty statements in the paper all of a sudden. You know, it's different. You become a much different person when you run for politics and you do what's right. I could do other things, and I'm sure he'd like me, and I'm sure other people would like me, but it wouldn't be as good for our country. As we said, our country's doing really well because of what we're doing. So it's not a popularity contest. So, I don't know. I would certainly look at the facts. If I think somebody was mistreated, whether they like me or don't like me, it wouldn't have any impact on me.
So there you have it. That's the gist of that interview right there. Now, what I heard from that, he was hesitant to answer. Will he pardon Diddy? I have no idea. Here's the thing about the whole Diddy thing. You didn't start hearing a whole lot about his allegations until he was arrested, and you have people like Jaguar Wright and Cat Williams are the main ones who have come out basically prophesying all of this to be happening. They even implicated people like Jay-Z, T.D. Jakes, and a bunch of other people implicated in this. And they've been right about a lot of these things, which strikes me as odd that they felt bold enough to come out and all of a sudden start doing all this stuff at the same time. But what I see from Diddy, from the trial anyway, they've chosen not to go after him for a lot of things. Not saying they can't do that later on, but they've only gone after him for this, for the human trafficking, and possibly, I can't remember the other charge that they're giving him, but a lot of this stuff that they're bringing up, he has paid prostitutes, which is, pretty awful when he has these freak-offs and stuff, but what people I don't think understand is this is common thing for the rock and roll lifestyle. This is the kind of stuff that they actually do. This is why a lot of people think he might get off if this is all they're going to go after him for. David, what do you think about that?
Well, what strikes me odd about what President Trump said and what he didn't say, you would think that in his position he would distance himself from this fellow that's got terrible things he's been accused of, and the verdict isn't in on his guilt or innocence. And it makes me think, there was connections with Mr. Trump and Mr. P. Diddy, and also the connections with Mr. Epstein and Mr. Trump and his wife. And I don't know, but it makes me wonder, maybe he will have to pardon P. Diddy. Maybe he will have to, because of what Mr. P. Diddy knows. And certainly he knows a lot of stuff on a lot of people, just like Mr. Epstein. Better put a little suicide watch on him, I'd say.
And Whitney Webb, I believe, just came out with a video the other day directly tying Diddy to Epstein. And so there's a direct tie there. And obviously we know Epstein was an intelligence operation.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this has all the markings of an intelligence operation as well. So, yeah, there's something there. So we're going to move on to a really interesting aspect of this. And there's a lot of interesting things. Stay tuned to this because you guys aren't going to want to miss any of this. And so we're going to talk about the media, because ultimately the historic root, the purpose, the soul contracts, and the practices of media go back to an ancient time. In fact, they were named, what I'm going to be suggesting to you is that they're named after the land of the Medes in the Bible, the land of Media. Medes, their land was called Media, and the Medes were a formidable opponent of Babylon during the time, and also Persia. They were also cohabitated with Persia and Babylon as well, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So these are some of the scriptures here that point out the Medes. And you have in Genesis 10, a lot of people believe in Chronicles 1 and Genesis 10 that Madai was the father of the Medians. And the Medians were associated with Elam, which is going to come in handy to know here in a little bit. Ezra 6:2, that Ecbatana was the capital of Media. And then it has their association with the Elamites. And one of the interesting things here that I thought was about how every time that Daniel was told to write something down, he said, write it down in the hall of the Medes and the Persians, because their laws are irrevocable and do not change, which I found interesting. I have no idea what that means. Maybe you have more insight into that, but there's a lot about the Medes in the Bible. Whereas it's interesting because in history, you don't find a ton of different things about the Medes. You do find some of the Mesopotamian writings about the Medes. Even in their own hometown, you don't find particular stuff with the Medes, but you find a collaboration of stuff, which kind of suggests that they were very thoroughly mixed in with the population there in that area. So moving on to this. So this is according to Herodotus, which a lot of people believe that his stuff isn't exactly legitimate because it doesn't line up with some of the old, more ancient records. But I believe he did have insight into some of these things. I'm just going to read what he wrote here. It says the Medes had a priestly class called the Magi, who were one of the tribes of this people. They had the right or privilege to serve as priests, not only for the Medes, but also for the Persians. And what I'm getting ready to play for you guys here is, this is a video done by Zachary and Stephen Denman. And Stephen Denman is a writer and a researcher, and he discusses the Medes here in a way that I think is very interesting, and I think that you guys will get a lot out of it. So I'm going to play that.
So we had this consistent or succession of various Iranian kings and Iranian queens through various Persian dynasties arising and falling over many thousands of years. And we know that the Medians, or that the Medes, they were Indo-Aryans. They had an incredibly potent temple priest class who were employed by the various other Persian Aryans, in terms of the various aristocrats, the royalty of that part of the Asian continent, who were used to then create very clever stagecraft to create a fascination and awe, and to create a humbleness amongst the audiences, the spectators and the observers. So the various principalities where these Iranian kings, Iranian queens were in control of could be maintained. They could maintain their prosperity, their personalized wealth, the control of their palaces or castles and so forth. And the masses just went on doing their everyday tasks, their various, the labors of their existences, and paid their taxes.
I find it amazing that you say about temple priests, and it's not nowadays the newsreader is actually the temple priest, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, this is what, the newsreaders are the new type. I mean, at the time of the Median Empire, the actual priest class, the actual language, the Median language itself, they were called the Teb Kashash, or priest class. They were also known as the Desh Kashash, or priest class. And what is interesting also to note is they were similarly called the Dervad, or the Derwad, meaning captivated with knowledge person, which is interesting because the Derwad or Dervad, in terms of its etymology, is related to the word druid.
Yes, yeah, druid.
So
yes,
what
right.
is, and then in the plural, what we see is that the Derwad were known as the Dervadan, or the Derwadan, meaning captivated with knowledge people, or the druids. So they were the temple priests, or the druids of the Median Empire, the Medes Empire of northwestern Persia or northwestern Iran. So yes, there's obviously a direct connection between, the Dervadan or the Derwadan of the Medes Empire and the Druids that we know of that existed in Ireland and across Albion or Britain, as well as parts of Western Europe. So that's an interesting connection. We know that there was connections between the Druids and the Brahmins, the Brahmana area. You have these individuals that were captivated with knowledge, the Derwadan or Dervadan of the Medes Empire, the Median Empire of northwestern Persia or northwestern Iran, And then you've got the Druids or the Druidic priests of Ireland, of Albion or Britain, and parts of Gaul, which is obviously in northwestern Europe, and parts of France, and stretching into, expanding and extending into parts of Germany. So we know that there was a lot of interconnection going on culturally. A lot of this isn't accepted by Western science. It probably never will be. They don't want to have all these cultural interconnections. It creates a much clearer, shall we say, chronological picture of the past that they probably don't want Homo sapiens or human beings to acknowledge.
So, Steve, obviously media is connected to magic. And so what is the etymology of the word magic?
What is interesting that in the old Persian language, we know that the rituals of the Medes or the Medians were actually called magush, and it means holding power, which is very interesting because that's exactly the same etymology actually in the lingua greca, or the Greek language, where we see it is actually magikos, meaning holding power. So the temple priests were known in the old Persian language and in the Medes language or the Median language as the Aryuha Madassa. Wow. And Madassa is a word in the old Persian language and the Median language for the Medes themselves. It's actually how they refer to themselves, or the Medians. And the Aryuha Madassa meant the middle noble people. So the Medes, and this is very interesting, that the Medes or the Medians saw themselves as the citizens of the middle kingdom, the middle land, the middle country. What we have today is this interesting connectivity here in the modern age, or the digital age, between the Medes or the Medians or the media, who are literally the midway point. They are the liaison.
So what I found interesting about the whole video is very interesting, but the fact that they tie these words in, it ties in with the Druids, all of this makes a lot of sense to me. And the fact that Medes means midway or midland. The word medium is a word described as the middleway, and that's where the word media comes from as well. So all of these are directly tied in, and I don't think it's any coincidence that they termed the control mechanism media. And after knowing this, and we know that there were magi that came from other places as well, such as Chaldea, which were all around that area, and they served the kings. We see that in Daniel. David, do you have anything you would like to add?
Well, these magi are very, very interesting, and it appears that some even had faith in the true God. And I was reading one of the scholars, I think it was Henry, and what was told and believed by Christian scholars is that the Magi learned about the star that was going to show the place of the birth of Messiah, that Zoroaster himself is the one that deduced that from the prophecy of Balaam and told the Magi. So it's amazing. They, and you think about it, there weren't any Jewish prophets that figured that out. But here, these people, who most of them didn't worship the true God, they were so brilliant that they figured that out. So they were very bright, and most of it was in the ways of the world and of the things of the other realm, but certainly very, very brilliant, very powerful people.
Yeah, and that brings me to the next point here. There were good magi and bad magi. And if you noticed in the video, I think he said this, but in one part of the video, they were also known to be in the lands of the Scythians, and that they were known to be pretty much the same people as the Scythians. They were horse riders and all of those things. And as you know, the Sith Lords, this is where you get the idea of the Sith Lords and the Star Wars, and you also get the light side of the Force, which I believe represents the Magi that you find in Matthew chapter 2, the ones who came to worship Jesus and the ones who ignored Herod's rule for them to come back and do that. They brought him gifts. And I believe you're right, David. I think that Daniel himself installed some very godly men. Darius himself said, they all proclaimed that the Most High God was God by the time the end of their reign.
Yeah.
And these magi have been used, these priests, temple priests have been used for thousands of years. And a lot of people believe that the politicians are the kings, but there are always the groups like the Merlins, like you go in the ancient times, the Merlins, the magi, and now we have spiritual advisors. We have all of these different types of magi that are out there doing that. And I guess if you think about it in a way, anybody who presents any kind of information that is swaying to the opinions of people in a way would be considered one of these type of media type magi type people. The question is, are they doing it for the right reasons or the wrong reasons? And my suggestions and my thoughts about this, I think Hollywood has been gripped 100% by the evil side. I mean, I don't see a whole lot of light left in it. Do you?
No, I don't see any. I think that the dark magi are ruling the roost out that way. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that this ties back to something that all of the magi were trained to do. And I'm going to mention a magi here. A lot of people don't see him as a magi, but I am very convinced after reading the scriptures and seeing what it says about him that this guy is definitely a magi. Who is Balaam? Let's just read the Bible and see what it says. Numbers 23:7. And he took up his parable and said, Balak, the king of Moab, have brought me from Aram. So he came from Aram. He was brought forth from Aram. So he wasn't Moabite, but he came from Aram. Numbers 22:5 says, he sent messengers, therefore, unto Balaam, the son of Beor, to Pethor. And Pethor is a place I'm getting ready to show you here in a little bit, which is by the river in the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, behold, there is a people come from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. So this is a map here that shows the land of the Medes. This is one of the Median Empire maps. Some of them suggest that it was all the way through Chaldea as well, since they ruled there. And you see the different 6 medium tribes, which one of them is called the Magi in this bottom right-hand map over here. And in the left-hand map, you see where Haran is, and you see where Pethor is on the top map. And this is all in the same area where they would have had to get Balaam and take him all the way back to curse Israel. And so he came all the way back to do this, and he couldn't do it. So Balaam was not a prophet of God, in my opinion. Balaam was a prophet of the Magi. He was one of the pagan prophets, one of the Zoroastrian prophets, and he was a paid prophet. He was one of these consultants to kings that would go and do their consultations, do their bidding, read their signs, and even put curses on entire nations. And that's what I would suggest, that exactly what Balaam was. And if that is true, then let's see what Balaam did, and let's see if this lines up with what we're seeing out of the modern day Medians and the modern day people that are in control of the media. Revelation 2:14. But I have a few things against thee, because thou wast there that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication. Now, the things meat sacrificed to idols doesn't make a whole lot of sense to most of us nowadays. I'm sure that there is an implication somewhere out there for this and what they're trying to do, but they're definitely getting people to commit fornication. And this is the doctrine of Balaam. And so if Balaam was, in fact, one of these magi or seers from the land of Aram, or from the land of Armenia, from the land of where the Kurds were, where most people think the Medes were a part of, then this makes sense. Now, there is another verse that talks about him dying alongside, I believe, 3 or 4 kings of the Midianites, which doesn't necessarily mean he was a Midianite. It means that he was possibly there to serve them as well, because in these 2 verses, I think it's pretty clear that he came from Aram, or he came from Pethor, in those 2 verses. And so that's just my opinion. David, what do you think about that? I mean, I know that there's other people that believe what I'm saying is true as well. I'm not the only one, but this brings to light, to me, it really brings to light a lot of the practices and why we're seeing them.
Yeah, and I've done a couple teachings on Balaam on FOJC, and the conclusion I come to on Balaam was that he was and quite likely also a Magi, and he was a member of the Melchizedek priesthood. When the children of Israel were coming in to Canaan, he already had a reputation. He wasn't an Israelite, and he was like Melchizedek. And in the scripture, there are places where it specifically says that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh spoke to him, and the Spirit of God come upon him, And there were messianic prophecies that come forth from Balaam, and he's really the poster boy for a good prophet gone bad. And in the book of Jasher, it talks about the confrontation with Jannes and Jambres, who in the book of Jasher, it's explained that they were the children of Balaam, and they were there opposing him. And it's very interesting. In Jasher, when Moses and Aaron, they brought out their rod, and it's like Balaam said, man, they have the rod. They must be magicians just like we are. And he went completely and you can see in the scriptures where it said in one place he didn't seek to enchantment like he had before. And I see him as a guy that he worshiped the true God, then he started mixing stuff in, and he was totally a full-blown magician by the end of the story. But most definitely, we understand him as someone that was not Israelite, and he had a real reputation, and understanding him as a member of the Melchizedek priesthood and a Magi would be the way that we would look at Balaam.
Well, I know that the Melchizedek priesthood is very mysterious to begin with. I mean, there's not a whole lot that really, if you look at it, there's not a whole lot that could be said about where Melchizedek came from, who he is exactly, other than that he has no father and mother, and that there's a priesthood of Melchizedek that we see in the Bible. And I think that Melchizedek, the way that he is addresses God as the Most High God, is an interesting way. That's El Elyon. And you're right, David, some of the only people that mention El Elyon are the Magi. This is before the Hebrew. There were no Hebrews up to this point. I guess there were Hebrews, but no, he was not a Hebrew. Melchizedek, that I believe he wasn't a Hebrew. So I think you're right. I think there's something to that there for sure. But nonetheless, he was one of the Magi, one of the people that they would call Magi. Even Moses was actually called a Magi in some of the text, which is interesting to me that he is actually called a Magi as well, which obviously you can probably call anybody a Magi, if you really want to. But at the same time, in the Chaldean books and different things like that, he is known as a Magi as well, which is super interesting to me. So anyways, continuing, the idea that this was a practice that was taught to other kings in order to go and cause them to commit fornication, in order for them to be cursed, makes sense to me that that's exactly what the goal is now, especially when you look at the hip-hop connection in who owns the businesses. And hopefully I can't get in trouble for saying this is common knowledge, but the people that own the private prisons actually own some of these record labels as well. So there's a little bit of, I can't say much about that, but that's the truth. If you look into it, you'll find that out. Now we look also at Hollywood, and this is one of the connections that I wanted to make. And Hollywood, for those of you that don't know, the wood of the holly tree was where the Druids used to make their wands from, and they believed that these were some of the best wood to be able to make wands from. David actually did a broadcast. 3 weeks ago, if you go back on our website or on our YouTube channel and you go down here, I showed you guys, if you click the live and you go there, you'll be able to find that broadcast. But it was called The Illuminati Wand is Real. David, explain this connection to the Druids and to the staff and all of the things that they represent.
Well, this has a very old history and a tradition, and a lot of this is brought out in the book of Jasher and a lot of other extra-biblical texts, and it was always the wand. And as I mentioned, in the book of Jasher, when Moses and Aaron had wands, it says, Balaam was quoted as saying, man, they're magicians like we are. And the use of the wand in the most remote antiquity was the symbol of the way to disperse and manipulate spiritual forces. And we took a deep dive in this midnight ride, and we connected this with mesmerism and ritual magic. And it's all over pulp culture. You got to try to miss it, the way the wand is all over video games and movies. It's in your face. And the Illuminati wand is real. Well, yes, it is. It's something that they take very seriously, and it's just kind of hard to miss.
Yeah, it's amazing that they named it that. and all of the serious implications of the Druids and the idea that these Medes, some of the words that they were called were Druids. The Duat, I believe, is what he called them. That's interesting to me because if you look at what's going on in our country, I mean, really, Britain at one time, and still, I believe that this may be a different sect of Druids, possibly, but I believe most of the kings have been of the order of the Druids of England as well, and I believe that some of the rituals that they take place here in America, you can find that practice as well. And we've talked a lot about that. I don't want to go into all of that tonight, but it is definitely a reality. I've got a few clips here that I'm going to play. I'm going to play this one first. This one is Cat Williams on the Joe Rogan Experience, where he is discussing what we're discussing here. This is kind of explains who Hollywood is, and so here we go.
Whole industries can be built upon your ability to know how certain things are going to hit certain people. And this was before we called things promotion and marketing. Hollywood is not really there to entertain you. Like, that's great that happens. But propaganda is something that is important to all civilization. Everybody's like, oh, he keeps talking about people wearing dresses. No, it's not.
That is a weird thing.
It's not like that. Look at it from a different way. Look at it. Show me one person that ever wore a dress in Hollywood unsuccessfully. That's how you understand what a ritual is. So 20 years ago, I knew that transgenders was going to be a thing. It wasn't because I was a prophet. It's just I had gotten so much information that I understood that things are secular. So I understood that the earliest I had seen that word transgender was Baphomet, the transgender. And so I knew that in the ritual of Baphomet, the transgender, to show allegiance to him, you had to kiss his ass ring.
Really?
And it said both of those things. So I knew that both of those things would become popular in the future.
It's pretty eerie right there. It tells you a little bit about Hollywood. We'll go into this next video here. Play this, and then we'll get some comments.
But when you lose your man card, that's the only thing I can think of. You lose your damn man card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it. A man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying. You don't get that back. You come into this world as a man one time. You give up that right for anything, for fear of being hurt, fear of somebody doing something, for wanting to gain something. When you give up that man card right, you lose some spiritual energy that has always been pushing through. But when you give up your manhood, I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Get punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid, it's gone. You don't have any foundation to pull yourself back from. So maintain your man card, no matter what.
So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head. The things that they did, no matter how they did it, whether they were drunk or high or whatever, you gave up your man card. And that's what the business does. And the women that trade their bodies to go and get the role, they get to the point where they have their Oscar, they have their money, but they don't have their dream. They don't have the soul that they started with. So it's like achieving don't mean anything. If I get all the Nobel Prizes from doing all of this, but in the process I have to trade out all of my integrity to do it so that they can stay in place, what benefit is that if I lose my integrity? You got to go in as a principal.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the
Hell
consequences
yeah.
when
I mean,
you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to fuck you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication. Now you know to be hands off with somebody. A number of producers coming to make the approach, and you threaten to punch them in the mouth, or threaten to knock their head off for talking to you or looking at you like you're a woman. When you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept. So always be the man in the room.
Interesting stuff. So this is a couple examples of the kind of control that they're placing over a lot of these Hollywood actors, and this mirrors exactly what I think we're seeing in the Diddy trial too, because there were a lot of men involved as well in this, and some people were saying that even Justin Bieber was possibly involved in this. But this is a old game of control when it comes to those type of practices, man dominating over another man doing that. This is a type of control. Plus the idea that they film these things and they hide it hanging over these people's head for a very long time. We really need to take a look back at these people we've idolized and given our money to for all of these years. It's really interesting to me. David, do you have anything to add before I go on to this next video? This next video I'm getting ready to play is from Dougie Corrado, and he was a social media star in LA, and he talks a little bit about something that he saw at one of the parties there.
Well, it is just very disturbing and a real honest admission of the terrible hurt these people do themselves. And I think he's quite right that a lot of things they do, there's just no coming back from. You're never going to be the same when you go to the extreme of what many of these people are doing.
That's true. So here we go. This is the next video here.
There's about 10 other newcomers in front of me and David, and
let me explain this video beforehand before I play it, because I think you guys need some context. This is not the whole video. He does have all of the videos on there. He even talks about what happened after and how they stalked him until he left the town. But to give a backstory, this gentleman here was a TikTok star, a Vine star, a YouTube star, all of those things back when YouTube was just getting kicked off. And so he was... a lot of these kids moved to LA. There's documentaries about this, but a lot of them moved to LA, and he was invited to a party, and a lot of people had been getting invited to this party, and he'd only heard rumors, but he did know that every person that actually went to these parties were getting wildly successful. And I'm talking wildly successful out of the blue. Boom, they're blowing up. They're doing all these different things. And he gets an invite. He actually shows in one of his videos the invite he gets, and it's this wax, gold and trim letter. And in the letter, it invites him. It says, we've noticed you and we want you to come to this. And at the bottom, it had this necklace thing that was attached to it that looked like an eyeball. And that's something to look out for when you see that logo for sure. So he goes, and his friend's like, oh, dude, I need to tell you about something. So he takes him upstairs, scared because he doesn't want anybody else to hear him have the conversation. But he tells his friend, he said, listen, dude, do not go to these. I know somebody that went to one of these and weird stuff happened, like bad stuff. And I'm just worried that it's true what he was telling me. And the guy kind of like shrugged it off, like, maybe it's true. I'm just going to go and check it out. It's just a party. How bad can it be? And so he goes there. The party's on Laurel Avenue, which is where Manson created, did all those things. There's massive mansions there. A lot of crazy stuff's happened on Laurel Avenue. So he's going through these, if you've ever been to LA and different streets, some of these real fancy neighborhoods have no street lights or anything. And you don't even know you're near a house until you're pulling up a driveway, maybe going into an elevator through a tunnel or something. They're it's massive the way this is all created. So he's going here, he goes inside. They take him through several rooms. So it starts out with a normal party, everybody's nice, hanging out, they're all wearing masks, and they start taking him through different colored rooms. I believe one of the first ones was like a blue room, and then like a gold room, red. I don't remember all the rooms. He goes through all the different ones, but they're going through 7 rooms. And so at this point in the video, they're getting ready to go into room number 6. And I thought this was an interesting place to play it, because I don't want to play the whole video. We're talking, 40 minutes or so. So check it out on your own time if you want. I think it's worth checking out. Whether you believe the kid or not is up to you. I believe that what he's saying is probably true to a certain extent. And I believe that even if it didn't happen to him, it's happened to other people. I've heard testimonies of the same thing with all of this.
Agent that invited us is standing to the left of the door, and the host of the party is standing to the right. The host has a pile of books on the table next to him. I see the host ask the first person in line a question and then grab a book based on his answer. He would present the book to the person and place a diamond-shaped metal symbol on top of it before having them repeat something that he said. Then he'd take their mask off and let them enter the next room. I couldn't make out exactly what he was doing until there was only 2 people ahead of me in line. The books were Bibles, Qurans, Torahs, and so on. He would ask the person, "And which one is yours?" Whichever they chose, he'd grab it and place the metal symbol on top of it. He'd have you put your hand on top of the metal symbol and then repeat, "I am my own God, I bow to nobody but myself." When I tell you I am done with this party, and I whip my head around and I tell David I am absolutely not doing that. David whispered back in a joking tone like he always does, "Dude, it's just a party, who cares? I'll see you in the next room." And he skipped me in line to show me that he'd do it first to make me feel more comfortable. He went through with it and giggled his way into the next room. It was my turn, so I tried to play it cool and whisper to the host, "Do you mind if I skip this part? It's making me a little bit uncomfortable." I thought he'd subtly break character and reassure me that this is just a party theme and it's all good. Instead, he whispered back to me in a really kind tone, "Of course, man, don't worry about it. Just take your mask off and turn around." I was relieved for about a split second before the agent that invited me here grabbed my arm and started guiding me towards the exit. And I see that everybody that was behind me in line staring at me straight-faced. I look back at the host and he's standing up and loudly shouts like he's starting a chant. The price was not paid. And then everybody in line that was staring at me chants in unison like they knew exactly what to do. "Remove the profane." And they repeated over and over until I'm through the exit door. "The price was not paid. Remove the profane. The price was not paid. Remove the profane." So the agent just walks me to the closest door. He doesn't even walk me to the front of the party and out the front door. He just puts me out into the backyard. It's 4 a.m. My friend's still inside. I don't have my phone. So I decide to walk around the right side of the house because that's where all of the party attendees were kind of headed. Let me see if I could peek in and maybe flag down David to let him know I got kicked out. And there's some windows to the next room. But of course these windows are like big church stained glass windows. And you can't really see through stained glass windows like the colored ones. But if you go really, really close and you look through the white parts, you could kind of see clearly what is on the inside. And this room is like a bizarre church replica without all of the seating. It's just a big church-like room. And all of the people that were in there had their masks off. And it was like a big circle and almost looked like an initiation. And all of these celebrities are standing around in a circle around the other 9 new people. It was 10 excluding me. And there was big TV grade cameras recording, and it looked like the group of celebrities and everybody else that was there was kind of cheering them on. But then there was clearly people in there that were much more serious and kind of threatening, and the 10 new people were in the middle of this room being forced to do horrible things that I wish I could unsee. And the new people clearly didn't want to do these things. They were being forced to do these things. And they were clearly recording it. And I see my friend being forced to do these horrible things in front of these people and in front of these cameras. I just start panicking. As I get to the front of the house, one of the employees is standing there. And he's standing in front of a car and he has my phone. I'm not sure if he knows that I just saw everything. So I'm kind of standing there deer in headlights. But he just politely goes, "Here's your phone and here's your ride. Don't worry, the driver will take you home."
So that's this kid's story. A lot of people are saying that he came out and said his story was fake, but he does nonfiction stories. I actually heard an interview with him talking about this, and he was really frightened for a while. So maybe it's fake, maybe it's not, but these are the same kind of stories that I've heard from a lot of different people, and this is how the next room, I don't know if you guys have heard about that. There's so many different actors talking about going into the next room. I didn't want to go into the next room, and there's just this continual thing. David, what do you have to say about this? Is this something that you've seen or heard about?
Gobs of times, and this is old, whether it's the satanic cult and a trailer court or the eyes wide shut elite parties selling your soul to the devil. It's as old as the pact with Mephistopheles And that's what it's about, the bottom line, renouncing the true God and renouncing Jesus Christ. And until you do that, you're not going to be in with the clique.
Yeah, and that's so much how they keep control. And I'm going to play some more videos before I comment too far on this. I want to be able to do this entire broadcast tonight. It's going to be hard to get it all done. I want to get it all done for you guys because I think you're going to find some of this stuff interesting. So I want to play this next video, and the reason that I want to play it is because it highlights this idea. A lot of people, when they see P. Diddy, they think, wow, this guy is so evil and he did this. But you guys don't understand this. Maybe you do. Hopefully you do. Diddy is 1 in a million. Or not 1 in a million. I'm sorry. He's one of 1,000, probably more people that are in the industry doing this. And this is not just an industry thing. This goes way back. One of the first recorded instances of blackmail was against J. Edgar Hoover from, I can't remember the Jewish mobster guy's name, but he held blackmail against him. This is the way that they operate in this industry. Well, this next testimony is from Pastor Rod Long, and he was a producer of Diddy's at one time, and he discusses a little bit about his transition from the secular industry into the gospel industry, because I want you guys to be aware of this. This goes on now more in the podcast industry, in the music industry, the Christian music industry, just as much, if not more, than it goes on in a P. Diddy party. This is real stuff that happens, and this is why you see some people rise quickly. This is why you see some interesting things happen, and if you're paying attention, you can tell. I don't need to tell you who all the people are that are involved, that are in this realm. You guys, if you're paying attention, you're not just trying to have your ears tickled, and you're really looking for it, you're going to find it. So anyways, I'm going to play this.
So I know we're running out of time, but I've got to hear this. What was it like going from the secular industry into the gospel scene? Because now you're saved, you let go of the secular stuff. Now you're kind of with the, forgive me for no better term, gospel celebrity or celebrated gospel singers.
Right.
What was that like? Was it easier? Was it better?
It's almost one and the same.
So you leave this scene, you go into the gospel scene, you meet your heroes, the Kingdoms. You're excited as well because this is like the P. Diddy on the light side.
Yes.
P. Diddy's on the light side.
Yes.
And now you find yourself in the similar kind of sexualized drugs world.
Absolutely. The spirit of it is the same. It's just a different face. The spirit behind a Diddy party is no different than the spirit behind any other party where you have the flesh on display. I think I had an easier time doing hip hop and R&B
and gospel.
God, I've had songs stolen. I've had people rip my music off in gospel, whereas in R&B it was almost everything that they the payments were there, the royalties was there. I've had gospel people try to steal my publishing, my royalties. Yeah.
So, I mean, there aren't a lot of people going to be excited to hear you doing this part of the interview where we were just talking about the Diddy world. And it's so easy to talk about the Diddy world because it's all over the news, of course, it's there, and it's kind of expected. I mean, he's called Daddy and he has a daddy's house. So it's like, I don't even understand why it's so shocking to people, except for maybe the child allegations and things like that. It's the church side that really saddens me. Of course, we all make mistakes. I have made a ton of them. But this seems a little bit more deliberate, a little bit more organized, and kind of a best kept secret of a cabal.
Absolutely.
Do you think it still happens today?
Absolutely, 100%.
So, as you see there, and this isn't the first person I've heard this from. This is very common. When I did music, you would meet some of these people in these bands, and you would wonder why they're doing Christian music. You would think, why are they doing it just for the money, or were they doing it to mislead people? Because there were some very vile acts that would go on behind closed doors at some of these tours and some of these concerts that would make you wonder. And the idea that the same people that run a lot of these record companies are the same in the Christian industry shouldn't surprise you either. This is the reality of the world that we live in. And now recently, this is something that I want to bring to your guys' attention, because Hollywood and the movie industry, they continually are garner lots of views, but when you look at the news media and you look at alternative news, the ratings that CNN, we've had shows that had better ratings than CNN. and we're a NYSTV. You know, we did the Midnight Ride, so we've had shows that have actually outdone the shows for CNN. And so now when they look at people that are doing broadcasts like ours, we are the new news companies. We are the new ones. And so they're always looking for people that could be involved in this as well, and especially in the Christian industry. And I would say that it's actually worse in the Christian industry than it is in the secular, because Satan loves to transform into an angel of light, and he loves nothing more than to get it that way. The open satanic stuff, yes, it's out there and it's very damning to a lot of people, but the secret stuff and the stuff that you don't see is actually, to me, more dangerous.
So I know we're running out of.
So going on, I want to talk about more of the influence in Hollywood. One of the biggest influence of what we're talking about here, which is the sexual blackmail, is Aleister Crowley. And as you see that he's featured here on the Beatles album, Sgt. Pepper, Ozzy Osbourne has a song about him. This is Jay-Z at the top, which has been implicated in a lot of these things. It says, "Do as thou wilt." Aleister Crowley really impacted Hollywood with his views on sex magic. He started the Golden Dawn there, the Thelma, all of these different things, and a lot of Hollywood people have been involved in this. And if you read, which I say don't read it, but if you do, you'll see that these rituals that he has taken and put in this book, which aren't his own, he's actually modified a lot of like tantric stuff and put it in here. But this is the kind of stuff that we're seeing at some of these freak offs. It's pretty interesting. And for those of you who don't know who Aleister Crowley is, he was a spy for MI5. He was also one of the highest ranked Masonic people in the world, and also started different organizations, did different workings to bring forth Antichrist, called himself the Antichrist, and had his signature as the Baphomet signature, I believe was his signature. So another thing about Hollywood that should give us a clue, if you're not convinced already that they're the magi's behind it have gone south, and let's keep going here. So the Emmys, the word Emmy means adversary. The ones who put on the Emmys are the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. And if you look at the picture there on the very bottom, you'll see it is presented by the NATS. And if you take that backwards, what does that spell, David?
That spells Satan every time.
That spells Satan. So the adversary awards are done by the NATAS, and backwards that is Satan. It's interesting. And I want to read this verse because I really do feel like this is what we're experiencing in Hollywood. It says, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry." And I really believe that's what's going on right now. It says, "Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood and establishes a city by iniquity." And if you look at the foundations of Hollywood, you'll find just that. And it says, "Behold, is it not of the Lord of hosts that the people shall labor in the very fire, and the people shall weary themselves for very vanity? For the earth shall be filled with knowledge of glory of the Lord, and the waters cover the sea. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that puttest the bottle to him, and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness." Exactly what's going on at a Diddy party. A couple more things I want to tie in here. This is the 70th anniversary corn, which ties Donald Trump with Cyrus. And a lot of you guys remember how Donald Trump was tied with Cyrus in another way in establishing Jerusalem as the capital and being that. And they believe that he is a Cyrus. What's interesting about Cyrus, he was the last king of the Medians was Ushtavaigu, which was his grandfather. And he was actually born and became the king of Persia at one point or another. And so he is of the lineage of the Medes. He actually took over the whole empire for the Persians, but he was born of Mede stock. So he has the DNA, the blood rolling through him. One thing that he did do was put an end to the Medes. And Donald Trump has said many times that he is going to change Hollywood. This is some of the symbols that represent Cyrus here. But these are the different articles here that talk about Trump and Hollywood, how he's the Hollywood tariffs and rails against Hollywood, and he's actually instituted his own like little Hollywood scene with Mel Gibson and a couple other people to check on Hollywood for him. So it's interesting that not only does he align with Cyrus in the Jerusalem thing, but he also seems to align with Cyrus in the media, because he has, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but he has taken over the media for the years. Even when he got kicked off social media, he was still all they could talk about. This man is the king of the media. And so it makes sense in a lot of ways to that. David, did you want to add anything before I move on here?
No, you go right ahead.
Okay, so another way that all of this stuff ties in is the music. So the medians were also good musicians. A lot of them were musicians. They used frequencies for music. They had, they were putting on the plays. You see it in Plato. You see a lot of the different things that plays were a design of these people in order to captivate the audiences. They were the reason the castles didn't get raided. They're the reason the kings could go out and do something atrocious, and somehow they would come out looking like roses. Well, these guys were the ones responsible. And so not only are they tied in the media, which music is a part of media, but they're tied in with a lot of other things too. But the music itself is very interesting. In the Bible, we see that David was able to ward off the evil spirit that was in Saul when he played his music, because the music that he played was of God, and the music that he played was of a holy way that he played it. But there's a study where it talks about all of the different places that music affects the brain, and it's astounding how much music affects the brain. And a lot of the hip hop and a lot of these different musics come from an ancient magical practice in order to do sacrifices and different things along those lines. David, do you have anything to add about music and about that?
Well, there's just so many things there. The Ezekiel 28, the anointed cherub that covereth, what it looks like there is his body is actually a musical instrument, just the way that he was made. And so much of the role of music and mind control was used by Timothy Leary. He said these were the elements: drugs, music, and occult ritual was what Mr. Leary said, that he could turn a gay person straight or a straight person gay or anything, what he claimed.
Yeah, and I believe it, man. After looking at some of these studies, it amazes me how we're not more messed up than what we are. I do know music played a huge role in messing me up in my life.
Oh, me too, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
I was all about that 60s psychedelic scene, I guarantee you.
Yeah, man. And you know, when I was in the 90s, it was all about rebellion. It was all about punk rock. It was all about the hip-hop the gangster hip-hop had started. All of that stuff just really impacted my mind. But you see all these different genres here, and really when you think about it, each genre has a targeted effect on certain types of people. You know, like the hip-hop industry is definitely targeted towards Black Americans, but it's also hits the white Americans. They actually buy more albums than the Black Americans do in the hip-hop.
Yeah. And what does the CIA do when they want to break somebody? They blast that music into their ears.
Yeah.
You know.
It's
it's mind control.
It really is, man. And you know, like when you look at like rock and roll, it's the same kind of stuff for other types of people, and even country music. A lot of people think country music is really innocent, but if you really listen to it, a lot of it is talking about, getting drunk, getting laid, and, doing the things you probably shouldn't do as a believer, but it's all like tied in with these, it's got the classical country sound, so people don't think it's as bad. But ultimately, all these tracks, from what I understand, from testimonies I've heard, and from even being in some major studios, there are incantations and spells that they do over the music before they even put the lyrics down.
Yeah. And it's disturbing to think about, but it's a reality. You were talking about the corruption of the Christian music industry. Christianity in America, or I should call it churchianity, is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And there are millions and billions of dollars made on the Christian music side. And these performers, they have agents just like a secular producer will have. And there was a young man, I won't mention his name, But he gave an interview where he said that the Bible says homosexuality is wrong. Well, he later had to walk that back because his agent told him that he couldn't be booked in the bigger venues unless he walked that back. And these groups are told that if you want to go to the highest level with the best gigs, don't use the name Jesus and write about God in generic terms. And that's the way it is. It's not very pretty, but that's the way that it is here in the real world.
Yeah, you notice they never say Jesus. There's always he has done this for me, or he, this and that. I noticed that too. It's very...
They could be singing about a doorknob for all we know.
Yeah, exactly. So, guys, to wrap this up, I want to read a scripture to you. And I want to say this before I wrap it up. I want you guys to share this out. We started an hour late, which there's a lot of people that aren't here that are normally here. So please share this out, and please pound the like button. We'll do the pound the like button here in a minute, but do it now if you're not going to stay to the end. So let me read this, because I think this is exactly describes the world that we're in right now. So be careful. There's other people out there that do this. And this is something, I used to know a guy that filmed everything. He filmed everything. He would have big parties and he would film everything that went down in that location. So it's not just Diddy doing it. There's other people out there doing it. There's a good book that I do recommend that you guys read that probably can't talk a whole lot about a lot of the stuff on there, but it's called Nation of Blackmail, and it's written by Whitney Webb. And you'll kind of understand that the blackmail has become a major part of this world.
Yeah, excellent book.
Yeah, definitely. So here we go. Let's read this. Romans 1:26 through 32. It says, for this cause, and then the cause here is because they didn't see fit to honor God. It says, for this cause God gave them up to vile affections. For even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lusts one toward another. Men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error, which was meet. And even as they do not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to do those things which are not convenient, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things. We've got some inventing of evil things for sure. Disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death. Not only do they do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. So this is what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a nation who has quick access to nasty things on the internet. Quick access, way more access than I had. When I was a kid, I had to go hunt down a Playboy if I wanted to look at something. I had to go do that or whatever. But now your child can pick up this phone and he has everything way worse than anything that I've ever had on my phone. He's got it right there. Your child has it right there. When you watch the TV, the ads that they play, which is one reason we're going to stay ad-free on here, because the ads that they play just completely blow my mind, the things that they'll play in between a kid's show.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just sickening and disgusting. So with that being said, David, that's all I got. Do you have anything to add before we wrap this up?
Well, just an amazing presentation, John. It puts before our eyes in such a vivid way that which we really suspect and know in our heart anyway. It's just a really, really great presentation, and I know that our listeners really appreciate it. And there's a way you can show your appreciation. Yes, there is. We're going to do the Pounder's Pound. We're going to count it down to help us with our algorithms, and hit that like button on the count of three. All right, count them down, John.
Here we go, guys. 1,
2,
3.
Boom.
Boom. Thank you guys so much for doing that. We appreciate it. Hit the sub button if you haven't. Please do share this out. We really need your guys' help on this because we did start late. And this is not one of those things that I would imagine is going to be way up there in the algorithm, because I think it does call out a lot of the darkness behind this stuff. I mean, a lot of people you can expose things all day long, all the people doing all the nasty things. But in the end, it boils down to there's a reason behind all of it. And that's what's important here. So thank you guys. Check out the links in the description if you want to support what we're doing. There's a link to David's channel down there in the description as well. And you guys can check out SpiracyCon in the description. NYSTV. Donate to keep us ad-free. Thank you guys. David, in us out.
As always, we want to thank each and every one of you for supporting the Midnight Ride in any way that you can. And we're just thankful. And to be able to let people know Jesus is the answer. It's all about him. There's only one way of salvation, and there's only one way through this minefield of perilous times we call the last days. So until next Saturday night, 10 p.m. Central, a big high five and good night, everybody, from the Midnight Ride.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast. Rise up, rise up, rise up.